anything else, you better let me get it now. The students will be here in a minute, and they take over the whole place.
I'll have another cup of coffee, please.
Carolyn, bring the gentleman another cup of coffee.
Yes, Auntie.
And hurry, there's the bell now.
Thank you. That must be a very interesting book you're reading.
Oh, yes, it is. P equals A plus B, Q equals A minus B. A equals 1/2 P plus Q, B equals 1/2 P minus Q.
That was the beautiful Linda Darnell in Stardust. That was her first big film. She was only 16 when she made that film. They were trying to pass her off as 17, but that's the way Hollywood is. So I guess you can glean from that this week's tragic star is Linda Darnell. I'd just like to say up front, if you like my content, please like and subscribe to the channel. Also, Linda Darnell is featured in my book, my first book, Tragic Hollywood, Beautiful, Glamorous, and Dead, available in the through a link in the description of this channel. That book has a lot of really fascinating stars. It's probably the most popular book that I've written. It sells the best. And her story is particularly poignant. So today we're going to talk about Linda Darnell. She was born in 1923 in Dallas, Texas. She was born to one of those savage stage mothers, Pearl, who had other children that she completely ignored because she thought that Linda was the only one of her children who had any potential whatsoever in making it as an actress or making it as something more than just an average housewife, because Pearl had had ambitions of being an actress. And so since those days were clearly behind her and she didn't have what it took, she thought maybe Linda, she would be able to live vicariously through Linda. And this seems to be a pattern with mothers of stars back in the 40s and 30s. A lot of stage mothers, Judy Garland's mother, Jean Harlow's mother, Linda Darnell's mother, and several other stars that we profiled on here. Mothers seem to want to live vicariously through their daughters, which is kind of sad, and sets their daughters up for a very unhappy life later on. So she was born in 1923. Immediately when she was about 11 years old, her mother started trying to get her into modeling. So she began modeling before she was a teenager. She was doing small modeling jobs for, small magazines. And then her mother would also try to get her theater work in theater companies. Again, she's only like 13 years old at that point. And a talent scout came to Dallas and saw her. And he was so taken with her looks, he said, "Why don't you come to Hollywood and we'll see what we can do for you?" So she moved out to Hollywood, and no one in Hollywood, none of the studios would touch her because she was so young. She was only 14 years old. So I'm shocked that they didn't put her in, because she was trying out for leads, female leads, romantic leads. So they told her to go home. Well, she came back a year later and was signed to 20th Century Fox. She got the attention of Darryl Zanuck. He immediately saw her potential as a big star because she was so beautiful. She had beautiful black hair. I mean, like, if you see her pictures back then, she looks like she's wearing a wig. She has such thick, beautiful, gorgeous hair. And she had an olive complexion, which set her apart from many of the actresses with very, very pale complexions. She looked exotic. She could play exotic roles. That's probably what he was thinking. So he signed her to a contract. She was 15 years old. And the first movie that she made, the first adult role that she had, was in a movie called Hotel for Women. She made a little bit of a splash in that movie, but not much. But it was in the next movie, Stardust, that she really shined. And Stardust was considered a really good movie for its day. She got critical acclaim for this movie, and Life magazine declared her the most physically perfect actress in Hollywood. And that's saying a lot, because her competition were actresses such as Vivian Leigh, Rita Hayworth, Hedy Lamarr, actresses like this who were, everyone thought you couldn't get prettier, especially Hedy Lamarr. Yeah, she was gorgeous, but she could act too. She was serious about acting and wanted to become a good actress. So after this, they paired her gorgeous Linda Darnell with equally gorgeous Tyrone Power. And she would make 4 movies with Tyrone Power. This was a phenomenally gorgeous pairing of the two of them. They were just beautiful physical specimens. And everyone loved Tyrone Power. And she got to play his romantic interest in 4 films, 3 of which I'm going to talk about. The first film was Brigham Young, about the Latter-day Saints religious founder. And she did a beautiful job in that movie, and so did Tyrone Power. And it was a big, successful film as well. It was a big, sweeping epic. Then she was paired with him in another sweeping period piece called The Mark of Zorro. And again, she did such a good job in this, and he did a fantastic job. It was, these are the type of films that made a lot of money back then, these swashbuckling period pieces with gorgeous costumes and sets and fencing matches. And Tyrone Power could actually really fence. He was very good at it. And then they paired her and him in a movie called Blood and Sand, which is a remake of a Rudolph Valentino silent movie, which was really good. But this movie was equally good, and it featured not just Linda Darnell and Tyrone Power, but the new actress Rita Hayworth. And Rita Hayworth, even though Linda Darnell put in a wonderful performance, Rita Hayworth kind of stole her fire. She was fiery, she had red hair, she had the best role, she was evil, passionate, everything rolled into one. And so Linda Darnell kind of got overshadowed a little bit with Rita Hayworth, but she still was lauded for her performance, and everyone thought that she was headed for great things. But Linda Darnell lists Blood and Sand as this movie in which her career began to slide afterwards. And it's because she kept getting typecast as the passive, sweet little woman, who's never says anything bad and who's completely innocent. And audiences got tired of seeing the same role. She essentially was playing the same woman in all of these roles. So audiences began to get a little tired of that. So in 1943, at 19 years of age, she decided to elope with a man named J. Peverell Marley, who was 42. That's quite the age difference. She would treat this marriage like a safety net, leaving Marley when she thought Howard Hughes was going to marry her, then returning to him when he did not. She did this 2 more times before divorcing him. I'm surprised he put up with it 2 times. They adopted a daughter, and this is the only child that Linda Darnell would ever have. For some reason, I don't think she was able to have children of her own. After Blood and Sand, her career kind of went into a little bit of a nosedive. Darryl F. Zanuck lost interest in her in 1942, and she made not that many great films until about 1946, when she was cast in one of her most well-known films, and that was the role of Amber in Forever Amber, based off the best-selling historical novel that was sweeping the bestseller list at that time. This was a big novel, almost as big as Gone with the Wind, and she snagged the role of Amber.
Good night. Lieutenant Ivis. Come in.
Well, as I so aptly remarked, pity the poor soldier in time of peace.
This is Mr. Ivers, Mistress...
Sinclair.
Mr. Sinclair.
Your services, madam.
My services.
Mr. Ivers is a close friend of Mr. Killigrew of the Theatre Royal.
An intimate friend, you might say. He's rejected 6 of my plays.
Mr. Sinclair is anxious to obtain employment as an actress. Do you think you could use your influence with Killigrew to help her?
I should think Mr. Sinclair's own influence would prove far more persuasive than mine, but I'll be happy to arrange an introduction.
Good.
Good night, madam.
Good night, sir.
This movie was really grueling for her. She spent long hours on the set of Forever Amber. She got sick. Towards the end of the shoot, they were telling her she needed to go on a crash diet and lose weight. And so she did that. So she was really weak and expected to film on the set long hours. So eventually she collapsed on the set towards the end of the filming. Twice she collapsed on the set. And when the film was finally released, she looked gorgeous in it. It was Technicolor. It was great. But the film didn't make it with the critics. They didn't like it. They said she put in an adequate performance, but nobody said she was absolutely stunning in it or wonderful in it. And so, again, her career kind of slumped into the doldrums. But in 1949, she was cast in a film called A Letter to Three Wives. This film was directed by the famous Joseph L. Mankiewicz, and Linda fell hard. We're talking really hard for Joseph L. Mankiewicz. He got the best performance out of Linda that she had ever given. It was a wonderful performance.
Oh, I'm sorry we're late. Rita had to go by the station.
Oh, do you see anyone there you know?
Just a husband of mine running like mad. Why?
Nobody else?
Where's Addie? Weren't you supposed to pick her up? Nothing's happened to her, I hope.
Addie Ross left town this morning.
And she was expected to be nominated for Academy Award, but this never happened. In the meantime, she is having this flaming affair with Joseph L. Mankiewicz, and she would later refer to him as the love of her life. Unfortunately, Mankiewicz was married, just like she was married, to Marley, and he wasn't about to leave his wife for her. And in fact, he didn't really return the kind of passionate love that she felt for him, because in his autobiography, she's barely mentioned. I think she has one line, in his autobiography, whereas in her biography, he's all over the place as the love of her life. She left her husband once again and had a flaming affair with Mankiewicz, and when that affair ended, she returned to Marley, but by this time, he'd really had it with her, and he sued her for divorce. This was in 1950, and he took $125,000 in a settlement from Linda. She got to keep their daughter, but at this point, she was bankrupt, and her career was definitely about to be over. She was offered very, very few parts, but she did make one more film with Mankiewicz, a very notable film, and it was called No Way Out, and her co-star was Sidney Poitier. And again, she put in this phenomenal performance. Poitier put in a great performance. It was a groundbreaking film for its time. But that's pretty much all that she did after that. Essentially, at the age of 29, Linda Darnell was washed up in Hollywood. She began to put on weight. She began to drink. Her husband, Marley, helped her learn that habit, and she continued it throughout the rest of her life. She looked bloated. She looked awful, and she wasn't getting any roles anymore. And essentially, she went from making $5,000 a week to making nothing, being fired, and not being hired anywhere in Hollywood. In 1954, she decided, well, I guess I should get married again since I don't have any way of making a living. All I know how to be is a movie star, and nobody wants me as a movie star. So she married brewery heir Philip Lieberman, and this marriage was weird, you guys. It's like she said, I'll marry you, but I'm not going to sleep with you, and we're not going to have conjugal relations. We're just going to be married in name only. In other words, she just wanted his financial support, living in a big house, and she behaved terribly during this marriage. She would berate him in public, and then she became disgusted that he would let her treat him like this. She threatened to leave him multiple times before they actually did get a divorce. And he wanted to keep her so bad that he decided if they adopted a little girl together, that she would stay with him. So they adopted, a girl. She was maybe 10 when they adopted her. But this did not work. And Linda Darnell was not interested in maintaining this loveless marriage anymore. So she finally divorced him and never had any more to do with either him or the adopted daughter. I thought that was not the best behavior for Linda. So, of course, she was down on her luck. She'd had a recurring nightmare throughout her life that she was going to die in a fire. She was deathly afraid of fire, and because of this nightmare. And sadly, that's exactly what happened to Linda Darnell. In 1965, after she'd been on the road for most of the year with a theater group, doing small theater, regional theaters in various places around the United States, she went to visit a friend in Illinois, and this friend and her teenage daughter welcomed her. And that night, the three of them were spent watching one of Linda Darnell's best films, Stardust, a film in which she was only 16 when she made that film. And everybody was happy and when they went to bed, but they'd been smoking. They had 2 full ashtrays full of cigarettes that they dumped into the sink in the kitchen. And then all 3 women went up to bed. And sometime during the night, a fire broke out downstairs, trapping the women upstairs. And her friend and the daughter, managed to escape out of the second-story bedroom window. But Linda was too terrified. She's too terrified to go out that window. So what she did was she wrapped herself in blankets as she walked down into the inferno downstairs. I don't think she realized that it was so full of black smoke that she wouldn't be able to see anything once she got down there, and she would be overcome by smoke very quickly. But what happened was she got disoriented. She went into the living room and stood about the front door. And unfortunately, when they found her, she was burned over 90% of her body. She was still talking. When they put her in the ambulance, she was still saying, "Who says I'm going to die?" But when you're burned over 90% of your body, 3rd-degree burns, you don't have any chance of survival, especially back in 1965 when they didn't have a lot of things they do now to help burn victims. And she succumbed to her injuries the following afternoon, and she was in agony that entire time. She was only 41 years old when she died, washed up at 29, dead at 41. So that's the sad story of Linda Darnell. Again, she's in my book, Tragic Hollywood, Beautiful, Glamorous, and Dead, if you want more details about her life and if you want to see more pictures of her. Thank you so much for joining me this week. Again, please like and subscribe. Please also check out my books, Tragic Hollywood, Beautiful, Glamorous, and Dead, Tragic Hollywood, Beautiful, Glamorous, and Still Dead, and my novel, Goodbye Angel, Goodbye, loosely based on the life of Thelma Todd. All these books are available on Amazon, and there's a link in the description of this channel for those books. Thank you. See you next week.